Hello again, welcome to a new video. Thank you very much for watching my videos and commenting. It's pretty important to know what exactly you're thinking and how much these videos have helped you in order to understand the topics that I'm just presenting. Today, we're going to study, as in the previous sessions, we have seen the problems that we have when we incorrectly use commas instead of periods or semicolons. Today's explanation will focus on the use of commas and the overuse of coordinating conjunctions. So to start in, let me first show you the topic for today. So today's video is going to focus on the overuse of commas and coordinating conjunctions, as I told you. So this one is called rambling sentence. Let's get started. A rambling sentence then may be defined as any sentence that is exceedingly long and contains too many independent clauses. As you may remember, in the previous videos you saw how the overuse of commas or how the incorrectly joining of two independent clauses with only a comma presents in front of the reader a very weak separation between ideas, and these ones are defined as comma splices. We have studied different correction methods that we can follow in order to avoid the problem. But what happens when we have these problems, when we have a rambling sentence, we have any sentence that is exceedingly long. Now we're dealing with long sentences. And this construction contains too many independent clauses. But what the real problem is that when these independent clauses are connected by commas, we tend to use coordinating conjunctions. So when we use the fun words to connect them and we abuse them, then we are creating rambling sentences. Just to recap, an independent clause is nothing more than a complete independent thought. Remember, we have already studied the concepts of a sentence and clauses, and we have defined that there are dependent and there are independent clauses. Independent clauses have at least one subject and a predicate, and that's why they can be classified as a complete or independent thought. But now, rambling sentences tend to contain, as I was saying, coordinating conjunctions, a lot of coordinating conjunctions, and among these ones we have the fanboys, as we know them, which are and, but, for, or, no, so, and yet. And we use these words to connect independent thoughts to one another. Generally, when we have rambling sentences, we have this tendency of overusing these. So what happens is that rambling sentences typically confuse readers and often leave them out of breath, as you see here. Why? Because they are reading the sentence, but they find too many independent clauses, one after the other, and that causes someone to be out of breath. So what do we need to do in order to avoid the problem? This is what we're going to study in the lesson. So the purpose of a sentence is to state a single idea or a small set of related ideas. But a rambling sentence states so many ideas, and these ones sometimes do not have anything to do with one another. Sometimes they are very related, and then the writer wants to take a narrative way of saying things, and because the narration will takes place, then the writer starts creating one sentence after the other one, and just making these links between one independent idea and the other independent idea by striking one thought after another thought, just using a coordinating conjunction, and that creates a rambling sentence. So here you see that rambling sentences are often confused with sentences that contain comma splices. Why so? Well, it is true that rambling sentences often contain comma splices, often, but not always. But the presence of a comma splice does not necessarily mean that the sentence in question is a rambling sentence. How's that? The following examples you're going to see will explain what I'm telling you. Note that the coordinating conjunctions, which are characteristics of a rambling sentence, and I insist, are in bold print in the following examples you see. Example 1, sentence containing a comma splice. I saw a bear lumbering through the woods. It was crashing and thrashing through the brush. Here you have a comma. One comma joining two independent clauses, comma splice. Second example, sentence containing three comma splices. I saw a bird lumbering through the woods. The air smelled like pine. As I listened, I could hear him breathing. He was giant. What we see here is that we have one, two, three commas that are separating independent clauses. Some writers might suggest that these ones are just commas in a series that are dividing one clause after another clause after another clause because they are independent clauses. However, we have studied that in order to avoid comma splices, we should link the sentences if there's a way to link them. And if there is no possible relationship between one and the other, we should place a semicolon. Example 3, a rambling sentence. I saw a bird lumbering through the woods, and the air smelled like pine, but as I listened, I could hear him breathing, and he was giant. Do you see the difference? Now, in the previous ones, we had comma splices because we had just separation between one idea and the other one using a comma. Here we have another comma splice, but here we are trying, in the third example, we are trying to take a narrative tone and then because we want to narrate what was happening with this there and what happened in the woods and that the bird was giant and all these ideas, then we are using and but in the same sentence. The overuse of coordinating conjunctions causes rambling sentences. And we have another one here that says, rambling sentence containing one comma splice. I saw a bird lumbering through the woods, and the air smelled like pine. But then, as I listened, I could hear him breathing. He was giant. The comma splice is obviously here, but before that, you see and but together. And by the way, but then I wouldn't recommend you to use a coordinating conjunction and then a conjunctive adverb right next to it. I'm going to explain that a little bit later when we study coordination and subordination in another unit. Then, so as you see here, comma splices sometimes are related to rambling sentences. Why? Because ramblers come together, idea after idea, and then you create a passage or a paragraph that contains too many independent clauses. Generally, the markers for rambling sentences are coordinating conjunctions. The fanboys come to be here. But sometimes the writer also makes a little pause, like in the last example, just writing a comma. So there is a comma splice inside a rambling sentence. Because of the similarities between these two errors, the reasons provided under the explanation of the problem that you're going to see next will be very similar to the reasons stated on the lesson that we learned about comma splices. The primary difference that you see between these two has to do with the fact that the rambling sentences are created by coordinating conjunctions, I insist, while sentences containing comma splices are obviously created by the use of commas to separate ideas. There's a big difference between using the coordinating conjunctions to create compound sentences and using coordinating conjunctions and overusing them in order to make the reader be confused instead of understanding the idea that we want to narrate in a passage or in a paragraph. So the explanation of this problem is the following. Rambling sentences appear in people's writing for one simple reason. Writers feel compelled to join related thoughts together by using coordinating conjunctions. The reason why some writers feel compelled to do this is to join these independent clauses together because they have to learn that thoughts of a similar manner should somehow be linked. You probably now recall the correction methods that I told you in the previous videos, where I'm telling you, avoid comma splices because they obscure the message of your writing and there is a punctuation mistake going around. So what do? Write compound sentences or use coordinating conjunctions. But the answer is not to overuse them. Think about it. Paragraphs are nothing more than groups of related sentences, right? Although sentences are supposed to express one single thought, they often include a lot of related details. It is the tendency of young writers, little kids, and sometimes amateur writers or very basic students to want to group all these related thoughts and details together, and that creates a rambling sentence. So we're making a mistake That is a baby's mistake if we are using coordinating conjunctions excessively. So what do we do instead? Most writers understand that unrelated thoughts must be separated from one another. Evidence for such understanding may be seen in the widespread use of comma splices, and in the fact that writers who create rambling sentences use coordinating conjunctions to separate long strings of independent clauses. In this section of this unit, we're going to study long sentences, and long sentences come in different shapes and forms, and we're going to see them a little bit later in another video. But now we're studying one of these type of long sentences that is called rambling sentence, because we want to say a lot, but we want to divide ideas by using coordinating conjunctions, which is not correct. So in order to avoid these, when a writer chooses to when a writer chooses to use coordinating conjunction after coordinating conjunction to combine what should be separate ideas or sentences, the result is almost always a rambling sentence. So in order to explain this, let me show you an example of a rambling sentence. I'm going to read it with a tone and the idea that is listed there by the writer, making no pauses or just doing what the writer is telling me to do. It says, the other day I went to grandma's house, and when I was there, I ate cookies and crackers, and she gave me a lot of soda, and then I went outside to pick apples, and I fell and struck my knee, so she brought me back inside and helped me wash it out, and it didn't hurt at all. That is a very long construction, a long sentence that is connecting many independent clauses together. What happens then, this one doesn't have any pause, and the more I read it, the more tired I feel. The tone of the above passage is characteristic of a young child. This is done purposely, for rambling sentences are the preferred speech pattern for young children. When speaking, it is perfectly acceptable to use a series of coordinating conjunctions, providing that it isn't excessively long. Children as well as adults use these techniques regularly, especially when they are excited. So let me just recap the previous example and read it in the tone I should read it. The other day, I went to grandma's house, and when I was there, I ate cookies and crackers, and she gave me soda, and then I went outside to pick apples, and then I fell and scraped my knee. So she brought me back inside and helped me wash it out, and it didn't hurt at all. When I'm saying all these ideas, I'm trying to tell my reader that I am narrating an event that started in my grandma's house. And when I was there, I did this, and then she gave me this. But when I went outside, something else happened, and as a consequence of that, this happened. So I'm really crushing too many ideas together. And as I read it, a baby, a young kid, can take this tone, and there's no problem about it. But we are adults and we're amateur writers, so we should be very careful not to use this tone in order to have too many ideas within one passage or paragraph. So here you see another note that is very important for you to take into account. In writing, however, a long series of coordinating conjunctions and independent clauses communicate a similar phenomenon, that is, the speaker is made to appear excited and somewhat unorganized. The problem is not that you seem excited when you are writing something and that your reader gets excited by reading what you have written all together that way. The problem is that it makes you look unorganized, it makes you look hesitant, it makes you look probably not ready, and that's not the purpose that we want to have when we write academically. It is important to realize that although rambling sentences are in fact errors, they are by no means confusing. They don't cause confusion like in the case of fragments. There is nothing in the example above that I read that will confuse or bewilder a reader. But the reason rambling sentences are considered errors is because they generate a very specific and often destructive tone. You don't want to have a destructive tone when you are addressing to an audience that probably is well educated. And you definitely want to have your writing as standard and as academic as possible, right? So we have to take into account that a rambling sentence, if it is not to be read out loud, must be read with speed. How else could you pronounce it in a single breath? You need to have some pauses because our minds are trained to hear words as we hear them to ourselves and we read them to ourselves as well. Reading a run on sentence silently to ourselves causes us to speed up. Even if you do it silently, you will speed up because you have too many ideas together. Interestingly, a perfectly valid technique in writing is to control the intensity and speed of a passage by using repeated coordinating conjunctions. The distractiveness occurs when the conjunctions are used to link independent clauses within a passage that does not benefit from having a fast, speedy tone. When you're narrating, it may be the case that you will have different coordinating conjunctions in order to give your reader this tone of narration and excitement that you want to cause. And it is okay. I'm not telling you it is wrong or that it is destructive of the tone. But I'm telling you, if the purpose is to write something different and then you want to join independent clauses within the passage, but this passage that does not benefit from having a fast, speedy tone, then you're making rambling sentences that are unnecessary and that are destructive in tone. So it is important to know how to fix these errors that cause sometimes our readers to be distracted. Writers must come to realize that, as we previously stated, that it is not acceptable to link a long series of thoughts using a series of coordinating conjunctions. More importantly, it is essential that we realize why it is not acceptable to link too many thoughts using a series of coordinating conjunctions. It is not acceptable because it utterly destroys the intended tone of the passage and replaces it with an excited and unorganized tone. That's the bottom line. You need to remember that when we write academically, we need to keep things standard. We need to keep them as formal as possible. Why? Because it intends to be a tone in which you want to tell the reader that you're writing seriously. But if you're taking a tone that is childish, I don't think people will listen to you. Let's see the example that we got and tell me. It says, the other day I went to grandma's house and when I was there, I ate cookies and crackers and she gave me some soda and then I went outside to pick apples. And I felt them scrap my knees, so she brought me back inside and helped me wash it out. And it didn't hurt at all. As you see, we are using too many conjunctions over here. Too many. The writer who wrote the above example is obviously aware that he or she has combined a series of different thoughts. Otherwise, there would not be coordinating conjunctions joining the ideas. In order to fix the problem, the first thing that the writer, the editor of this passage should do is to take out all the coordinating conjunctions that separate complete distinct thoughts and then replace them with periods. Why? Because it is only a way in which you can see if all the coordinating conjunctions that you're using are necessary or not. I'm not telling you never use coordinating conjunctions again. Don't take me wrong. I didn't say that. This change, in order to fix the problem, this change that I'm proposing here, is just to take all the coordinating conjunctions, then replace all these spaces with periods, but keep in mind that the change is not permanent, that it is only the first step in order to revise the paragraph. Revise because you need to rewrite it eventually. If you feel there is too much to be fixed. You see here, for example, that at this point, it is important to realize that there are two types of conjunctions, those that join separate thoughts and those that join objects or actions, which is something we have already discussed in class. And for my subscribers or viewers, you probably remember that there are two different types of conjunctions, coordinating and subordinating conjunctions. But when it comes to join two ideas, then we have only a conjunction. And when we're joining clauses, then we have coordinating conjunctions. as you see here in the explanation of 1 and 2. 1, the word and as a coordinating conjunction. The other day I went to grandma's house and when I was there, I ate cookies and crackers. I'm joining two independent clauses, but the second one is the word and in order to express that we are joining two elements. The word and as a conjunction, only a conjunction. The other day I went to grandma's house and when I was there, I ate cookies and crackers. So I'm joining the noun phrase. I ate what? Cookies and crackers. So my direct object here obeys to a compound direct object because I have one and two nouns there. Now, if someone were to take the passage from above and transform all the coordinating conjunctions into periods, as I was suggesting, without distinguishing between those that separate complete thoughts and those that separate objects or actions, the passage would look like this. The other day I went to grandma's house. When I was there, I ate cookies, crackers. She gave me some soda. Then I went outside to pick apples. I fell, scraped my knee. She brought me back inside, helped me wash it out. It didn't hurt at all. Instead of fixing the problem here, if we leave it in this stage, we are making it worse. So here we have replaced all the coordinating conjunctions that we had, and we have just taken them out. We have deleted all the fanboys that we had. Coordinating conjunctions out, and then we put periods in order to see which ones are coordinating conjunctions and which ones are only conjunctions joining elements. And if you see the problem right here, first, it looks choppy, and second, it makes no sense, and we have created probably fragments as well. So here, having learned the important distinction between the two types of coordinating conjunctions, one can be sure to replace only those conjunctions which separate complete thoughts. Then the passage would look like this. The other day, I went to grandma's house. When I was there, I ate cookies and crackers. This one is just a conjunction. She gave me some soda. Then I went outside to pick apples. I fell and scrubbed my knee. She brought me back inside and helped me wash it out. It didn't hurt at all. Now I'm using periods to separate only independent clauses. But still, I think I miss something if I just delete all the coordinating conjunctions. So what does that mean? That once this has been done, the next step is to understand that some of the individual sentences, which are also independent clauses, by the way, in the newly formed paragraph were originally dependent upon one another. Dependent not because they are subordinate clauses, but because they can probably have a relationship between one and the other. So especially the word so in the sentence, for example, I fell and scrubbed my knee, so she brought me back inside and helped me wash it out, tells the reader that the second clause, she brought me back inside and helped me wash it out, happened as a result of the first one because I fell and scrubbed my knee. So my grandma was attentive and she helped me to take care of itself and then she brought me back inside. So there, using the coordinating conjunction so is worth. It is very good and it is very useful. And here I have a correction for this one. It says, the other day I went to grandma's house. When I was there, I ate cookies and crackers and then she gave me some soda. Then I went outside to pick apples. I fell and scraped my knee, so she brought me back inside and helped me wash it out. It didn't hurt at all. I established a relationship between one idea and the other one, and I'm not making a mistake. I just created a compound sentence. Compound sentences are okay. And changing the sentence variety in your paragraph is totally cool. The problem is not to use coordinating conjunctions. The problem is to abuse them. So having learned how to break rambling sentences into sentences that are more precise and exact, it is important to understand that coordinating conjunctions aren't merely nasty things that should be eliminated from a person's writing. I'm not telling you never use coordinating conjunctions because it is a sin. I'm not telling you that. I'm just telling you be balanced in the way you write. True, too many of them in one sentence can create a grammatical freight train which strings together thought after thought after thought. But it's perfectly acceptable to join two separate thoughts together once in a while. And if they can really show a relationship between one and the other one, like this cause and effect. Such construction, incidentally, is called a compound sentence, and compound sentences are totally okay. If you were to take two ordinary sentences and join them together with the word and, or but, for, nor, or yet, you create a legitimately an okay sentence. So you have here a few more examples just for you to take a look at them and reflect upon them. I know that sometimes it may be a little bit difficult to understand certain problems when it comes to writing, but these ones are simple. If you see here, I stood under the branches of the apple tree and I jumped at the apples. And I jumped at the apple, my fingers outstretched. Here you have an example of one idea that has been linked together by the conjunction and it is okay. Still, we can improve it. Sure, why not? But here you have, I stood under the branches of the apple tree and I jumped at the apples. As a result, my fingers outstretched. This one is even better. We are varying the ways in which we are connecting the independent clauses. Here's another example. At first, it wasn't easy. Then I discovered that if I kept my eye fixed firmly on one of the red fruits, so I could make one single jump and grab onto it. You have another idea here. At first, it wasn't easy, but I discovered that if I kept my eye fixed firmly on one of the red fruits, I could make one single jump and grab onto it. Another example that you are using in order to combine ideas and use coordinating conjunctions that are okay. And finally, there's a seventh example here. She put hydrogen peroxide on it. The liquid doubled and fizzed. And here you have corrected it by using and in order to join the two ideas that are equal, which is the purpose of a coordinating conjunction and. Attention, please. In order to determine whether or not two sentences should be linked together to form a compound sentence, we must ask ourselves whether or not such a decision would add to the overall effect of the paragraph. That is why we can use coordinating conjunctions or we can delete them and use another way to connect ideas. Would combining the two sentences make the passage more cohesive? Would I improve the meaning of my passage by doing that? How would it affect the tone? Would it make it too childish? Would it make it too serious? Would it make it sound more fluent? Would combining the two sentences make the passage sound like we want it to sound? These are ideas that we need to answer. See, such questions must be answered by the individual writer. As a general rule, though, no more than two individual sentences should be joined together. Pay attention to this idea. Two or more coordinating conjunctions destroy the passage tone if we add them that way. So if we are going to use coordinating conjunctions, make sure they are compound sentences. Using coordinating conjunctions to create compound sentences, therefore, is usually a matter of creating and controlling the tone or mood of the sentence. Problems occur when writers try to use them too often, thus creating rambling sentences. Do you want to have some more practice about this? Check the Google Classroom assignment that you're going to have on this topic. And thank you very much for watching the video and taking notes about these problems, rambling sentences, and the correction methods that we have studied in this video. Does anyone have any questions? You can leave the questions and comments below the video. Thank you so much. Have a good day.